Welcome to a Thursday edition of the First Things First podcast. I'm your host, Jenna Wolfe. Catch us Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern on FS1. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Tell us what you think. Leave us a review. Time to bring in Nick and the Hall of Famer, Cris Carter. Tom Brady and the Patriots are looking for a bounce-back win when they take on the Saints on Sunday. Even after their Week 1 loss to Kansas City, the Pats are still the odds-makers' favorites to win the Super Bowl. Who doesn't love a good odds-maker? However, Brady says getting a win in Week 2 won't be easy.
I hope so. Again, we work pretty hard for 3 hours a week. We've got to be at our best mentally, physically, emotionally, and this team really tests you. I think they have they play very well at home. We didn't play very well last time we were down there. Kind of got our butt kicked. So it's a tough environment. It's our home opener. We're going to be challenged in a big way. So we got to meet the challenge.
I mean, you're not hearing anything new from Tom Brady. That's what you expect him to say. So I ask you something I almost hate to ask, but does this make a Week 2 game a must-win for the New England Patriots?
Well, we tried to create a storyline in week number 1 that's, say, the Cowboys, especially with Zeke, not knowing what his future was, that potentially that could be a must-win. We typically don't hear that in the NFL. So now we have the defending Super Bowl champs, 5-time Super Bowl champs, losing at home to Kansas City in a way that we're not used to them losing a lead, making a bunch of mistakes. Tom Brady not playing well. There's a huge emphasis on week number 2, but to answer the question, no, it's not a must-win for them, but they must play well. New Orleans is a tough place to play. Last time they went down there, I think New Orleans gave it to them, gave them the business. So they still need Tom Brady to play well. So I can accept a loss and don't believe this is a must-win situation for them, but it's a must for Tom Brady because, Nick, you're way ahead of the curve on this. You're saying that 40, eventually, the floor is going to drop off, and it happens very, very quick. So all eyes on Tom Brady. They can lose, but Tom Brady must look like himself in week number 2 in New Orleans.
There is no season that ends with the Patriots winning the Super Bowl that starts with them going 0-2. So if you're talking, can this team win the Super Bowl, then yes, it's a must win. And I want to jump off something you said, that if they lose but Tom Brady plays well, looks really good, you can deal with it. The only way that happens is if this defense is as bad as we saw in week 1. And that presents a whole new set of problems. If Tom Brady plays really well and the Pats still don't win, it means the Saints scored a bunch of points. Now, I will tell the audience, there's one quarterback in the entire league that has a winning record against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. That is Drew Brees. There is one quarterback in the entire league that has a career quarterback rating north of 100 against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. That is Drew Brees. His is all the way up at 123. So the Saints have reason to believe we're going to score some points on these guys. We're one of the few teams that has had some success on these guys. And there's one extra factor. This is the only time New Orleans plays in New Orleans until week 6. That is, they will play in London before they play in New Orleans again. It is a rarity on NFL schedules that through the first 5 weeks of the season, you only get to play one game at home. They already had, you add to it the fact that the Patriots get the long week coming off a Thursday night game. The Saints get the extra short week coming off the Monday night game.
And on the road.
Right. They traveled for Monday night back to New Orleans. So the Saints recognize the importance of this game. Now, I do not think the Saints are a good football team. I think that they are the typical Saints football team, which is prolific offense. Brees will probably throw for 5,000. But the defense will be so bad it will prevent them from being a good team, which is why I go back to, yeah, the Patriots have to win this game because you're not playing one of the 5 best, 10 best, one of the 15 best teams in football. So you better go to New Orleans and win this game if you are the team that Vegas says is the odds-on favorite to still win the Super Bowl.
Well, besides Tom Brady, what else has to work much better than last week for this team to win, this Patriots team?
Well, number one, they got to get a pass rush. Dante Hightower, they've moved him maybe to a defensive end, outside linebacker, missed some time practice this week because of a knee. Amendola was in the concussion protocol, which it seems like every year he's got some type of injury. And not to make light of concussions, but there's certain players that get more concussions than others.
And CC, I would think if he gets another concussion this season, that
they might shelve him.
He might shelve himself. Like, you're now talking about real life, long term. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but like to emphasize that point, Amendola is a serious injury risk at this point.
Right. Now, their pass coverage, their safeties, and their corners are very good, but their linebacker play. So pass rush and linebacker play, and linebackers in pass coverage. Their thing is, what does Sean Payton do to attack these linebackers? We saw the stare down between him and Adrian Peterson. He's got 3 running backs. How can he utilize them and get matchups that are favorable to Drew Brees? So that's going to be a New England problem going forward, their linebackers in pass coverage.
Well, do we know if Hightower's playing or not?
Hightower's supposed to play. I mean, I guess we won't. With the Patriots, you never really know until Sunday. But he certainly hasn't been ruled out. Going 0-2 here would be uncharted water for the Pats. They've never started 0-2 since Brady and Belichick have been together. They have not been 2 games under 500 at any point in the season since week 5 of 2001. That was the year Drew Bledsoe was the starter at the beginning of the season until Mo Lewis took him out. There is no precedent for the season starting at 0-2 for the Pats. And this is a stat everyone's going to hear this week because it's a relevant one. Since they expanded the playoffs in 1990, under the current playoff format, 88% of teams that start 0-2 miss the playoffs. Since they expanded the format, in the last 10 years, only 1 team to start 0-2 has gotten a bye in the playoffs. The 2013 Panthers, who were 12-4. It's the only team. And the bye is important for New England. It means home field. It means everyone's got to come through Gillette. And it means at that point, nearly 41-year-old Tom Brady has 1 fewer playoff game.
Right, and they haven't won a Super Bowl unless they had home field, right?
I don't think they've won a Super Bowl without a bye at least not since 01. But they might have had they might have had a bye in 01. Okay. Certainly not in the last 10, 15 years.
Right, but the thing to me that puts it over the top to not make it a must-win in week number 2 is how they finish the season. All these coaches are like, oh, we're week to week, we're on to the next game. No, they finished the season like this. At Buffalo, at Miami, now at Pittsburgh's the tough game, but then they have the Bills and the Jets. So they have 4 of their final 5 games against the AFC East for which they've dominated. So this schedule would allow them to recover, and no team deals with adversity like New England. So it's not a must-win in week number 2, but it is a must that the captain, number 12, that he gets back on track.
Hey, go ahead, Jenna.
I was going to say, normally when you hear about a team that struggles, a team that's touted to be really good and they struggle in week 1, the team comes out and says, we're fine, we're looking ahead, everything's going to be okay. You don't always believe them. You think there's a lot of fighting going on inside or a lot of stress or a lot of moving pegs around. But for some reason with this team, I have to ask, are we more panicked than they are, or are they more panicked than we are?
I don't think the Patriots are panicking. I think the Patriots have a sense of supreme earned confidence.
Yeah, I believe them when they say they're going to get back on track.
But the Patriots are also led by 2 of the smartest people in football, Brady and Belichick, and 2 students of the game. So even if they don't want to think about it, Brady in particular, all these stats about 40-year-old quarterbacks that I've been hollering for 2 weeks, Brady knows them.
Yes.
All the trends about what happens to great players when it goes, Belichick knows them. Those guys know better than anybody when they went back and watched the film from their first playoff game last year against the Houston Texans. I guarantee you they were in that film room, maybe not saying out loud, but saying to themselves, ooh, we are lucky Brock Osweiler was on the other side of that field because we did not play well. They know how poorly they played to start the Super Bowl, and now they also know, to speak to your point about the defense, the last quarter of football this defense played, it gave up 3 touchdowns against an offense that no one thought was going to be prolific and high scoring, and now you're going to New Orleans in the Dome. So for all those reasons, I don't think they're panicked, Jenna, but they know that there is some writing on the wall. They're just trying to erase it.
There's no panic in New England. Last year, they started the season with Tom Brady being suspended. They adjust better to adversity, roster changes, changes in the rules than anyone in the game. And we have to give them benefit of the doubt. They will fix their defense. They will get Tom Brady with a high percentage of completions this week against New Orleans. And all they're concerned about is this week. They do it better than anyone we've seen do it in this business. So that is the thing that will supersede everything in the locker room. Supreme confidence in why we've done this before.
First things first continues. Eric Mangini here in studio with us. Coach, everything looks easy for Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott on Sunday night against the Giants. Now Dallas is getting ready for the Broncos in week 2. And according to Zeke, there's no secret to the Cowboys' formula for success.
I mean, that's what we expect every week. We know that we're a team where we're going to run the football. We're going to show you different looks, but it's going to be the same 4 plays. And it's going to be you versus us. You just got to stop us. You got to be better than us. And that's how we play week in and week out, and teams know that. So, I mean, that's our mindset going into every weekend. I expect every week to be like that.
Coach, he makes it sound simple. Is the Cowboys' offense as easy as Zeke says it is?
I want those magical 4 plays
right?
that you can build out any formation. Is he talking about the running game and the passing game? Is it
all of
4 plays? Well, they must have a lot of free time with meetings if that's the case.
Run left, run right, pass left, pass right.
8 minutes and break.
Good job. We'll see you Sunday. I can't imagine that it's that simple. I love the fact that Zeke feels it's that simple. One of the goals of the coach is trying to make the information as easy and as digestible as possible, and they've obviously done a really good job of it in Dallas. But no, I don't think it's anywhere near that simple. And I like Dallas's offense, and I like what he's saying, that other teams have to line up and stop them. The problem with that is if you only have one pitch, when someone does stop that pitch, it's really hard to adjust. It's really hard to build something off of that. And if you don't have some flexibility in your system, eventually someone's going to stop you. And you need to be able to go to something else and do it effectively, especially late in the season. That's where simplicity can be your enemy as much as it's your friend.
Is there any offense in the league that you think is built better for sustained success?
What do you mean by built better in terms of personnel?
I mean, in terms of
the offensive line, they've got a dynamic outside receiver. They've got a tight end to me. I love Jason Witten. You've got an inside slot receiver. They have a lot of good parts.
And a young quarterback that you would expect is on the upward trajectory. A running back who maybe already peaked, but that peak was super high. Like, I look at Dallas, and there's most other teams in the league, except for a quarterback injury, obviously. I say, because that's every team, that, if something happens, Atlanta's offense looks awesome. But if you shut down Julio, all of a sudden they become manageable. I look at the Steelers. They're great. But if you shut down Le'Veon Bell, they become a little more manageable. I look at Dallas and I say, I think if they say, okay, Dez isn't going to beat us, all right, Zeke's going to have 140. Zeke's not going to beat us. Okay, Witten's going to have 7 for 80. Dez is going to have 6 for 90. Beasley, I just look at Dallas. I don't see a weakness in their offense. I'm curious if you do.
Well, the second outside receiver,
Terrence
Williams.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is that guy is not as prominent as you'd like him to be, as explosive as you'd like him to be. There's an efficiency to this offense. Where Dak goes, I thought he had a really good preseason. There's a lot of positive things. Am I sold that he's 100% going to continue to grow and develop at the rate that he has? No, I want to see this over the course of at least the first 6 to 8 games a season. To me, his growth is going to be a big part of their success.
Coach, I'm just going to take 5 seconds to gloat because I have fought with these two for the last week on question marks surrounding Dak Prescott's trajectory.
Just because he agrees with you don't mean you're right.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. It's not that I don't think he's talented enough. What I was saying was it's hard for us to know exactly how good he is because they put him behind such a strong offensive line, such a great defense last year with a strong running back. And now all of a sudden we're like, he's anointed as this elite quarterback. I'm sure maybe he is. I just don't know if we are completely sold on it yet, and I think it's something to watch.
Well, you have to know Coach to know why he said that. He's been around this league. He shut down some of the greatest offenses ever. He has seen players that have started, RG3 and others, and at different positions. He's seen them not be able to maintain that level either because their football IQ, the amount of information they could retain, couldn't retain, the type of system they were in, living an NFL life, not having the supporting cast. There's so many other variables that, yes, I understand exactly what he's saying. But Dak and the Cowboys are in the best position to maintain his success because they can protect him. They can also manage the game because they can run the ball. So the chances of Dak falling off the cliff, they're not a great as margin as the other because of the supporting cast. The offensive line was built before he got there. Now they need to continue to do that. Dak's got to throw the ball down the field. They got 8 guys in the box. Terrence Williams, he's got to be able to make more big plays with 8 guys in the box. When they take away the running game, Dez Bryant has got to be able to dominate one-on-one or draw a double team. Because Julio Jones, you mentioned that before, there is no one guy that can shut down Julio Jones.
No doubt.
Now, we saw Jackrabbit.
And a lot of times there's not 2 guys that shut down Julio Jones consistently because we've done that enough times and he's still found a way to make 8, 10 catches.
Right. And so Julio, even he's so good and he has such a strong reputation, you have to put 2 guys on his side of the field. So for me, they can shut Dallas down, but in those moments, can Dez either draw a double team or be dominant? And that's what I want to see, and that's why I believe this offense is one of the elite offenses in the league.
Well, that's what I want to ask you about, because Cris mentioned Dez. We discussed this yesterday. Dez, year 3, 4, 5, he averaged 1,300 yards a season, had 41 touchdowns. So he, in years 3, 4, 5, as you're coming into your prime, he averaged better than 1,300 yards, better than 13 touchdowns per season. Since then, year 6, 7, and now we're into the very beginning of year 8. He has 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns. You mentioned seeing guys start to, they're going to become this great player, and then it doesn't happen. What do you think's going on with this?
Well, sometimes I think part of becoming a great player is also becoming a great teammate. And what I've liked about Dez is you never hear him talking about, I need this more, I need this. It doesn't always start with that. There seems to be a good relationship between Dak and Dez, which to me is one of the most encouraging things, because it's really easy for a guy to look back and say, hey, these were my numbers. Now they're not my numbers, and be upset about that. And I've had plenty of top-flight receivers on the sideline who say, I'm open, throw me the ball. And you look at the picture, and they're double, the safety over the top, they're double covered, and you're like, what are you talking about? And it's disruptive. So the fact that Dez is
he's matured.
Yeah, he's matured. To me, that's really encouraging from him.
You didn't, but Cece, I thought he was going to be. I thought he was a no doubt top 5 receiver.
No, that's why Dez and I had beef last year, is because I thought at this point, like, he would definitely be one of the top 5 receivers. I thought that he was the closest thing that we had seen to one of the guys I respect more as far as body type, number, mentality, than Michael Irvin. I mean, same type of player. But I saw Mike. Mike and I came into the league at the same time. We're the same age. I saw Mike evolve. I saw him do different things. I saw the variety that he put into his game. And now I just haven't seen that with Dez. But that was my expectation, that he was going to be one of the dominant. You talk about receivers and be like, Dez Bryant. Like, he would be in those first breath as far as verbalizing it.
And he's in a great situation right now because you do have such an effective running game. So defensively, you have to put 8 in the box. Then you've got to deal with the 2 inside receivers. You got to deal with the tight end. You've got to deal with the slot. It's not like you can push a bunch of coverage to the outside. So an elite receiver is, with those types of opportunities, you want to see him continue to take advantage of it and make big plays. And look, it is just game 1. We may see a lot more of that down the line. And look, I'm also encouraged by how he's
Yes.
and Dak have fit together.
Yes, and everything off the field, because there's a lot of questions about Dez. Dez is doing a lot of the right things in Dallas.
The Falcons barely squeaked past the Bears last week, Greg, and now Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are coming to town fresh off a dominant win against Seattle. So I ask you, who has more on the line, Greg, this week, the Packers or the Falcons?
The Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons, for this very reason alone, possibly. New stadium, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, you're opening it up. I remember last year, the Packers were in Minnesota.
I was at that game.
Opening up their stadium. Minnesota got away with one.
Yep.
So they did their job. They handled it. Can the Atlanta Falcons come out firing? And you have to understand, anytime a Mike McCarthy-led team and an Aaron Rodgers-led team has lost to you, and a bitter taste is left in their mouth. 44-21, NFC Championship game last season. It didn't look good for Green Bay. They had 2 turnovers in that game. Aaron Rodgers in the offense looked great, but that secondary looked dismal. Like they were non-existent. So I'm looking for Quentin Rollins, Demarius what's his name? Demarius Randall and Ha Clinton Dix and Morgan Burnett, the leaders of that secondary, to step up big because they have a task in front of them that we all know can be very, very explosive down in dirty South Atlanta.
I think it's very important for a couple reasons. The number one reason you mentioned, Arthur Blank has spent over $1 billion on that new stadium.
The city of Atlanta, too.
I mean, he is an amazing owner. I mean, he's turned that franchise around. But from a fan's perspective, Atlanta is not a professional sports team city. It's college football. It's the SEC. That's what they do in Atlanta. But they love their Falcons. Their Falcons have let them down time after time after time, in no time like last year's Super Bowl. So when you come back into a new stadium, playing against someone like Aaron Rodgers. Now, Dan Quinn, he comes from Seattle. He's trying to create the same type of environment, a very, very fast and physical defense like Seattle, playing on a fast surface, so they're a little undersized, but that style and intensity, they do the same thing, up-tempo, offensive. Now, if you don't have home field advantage in the NFC, in the South, with Carolina, Tampa Bay, and New Orleans, like, it's going to be a rough season. So you spent all this money. They have the team that matches the facility. The fans have been constantly disappointed. This is a huge game Sunday night for the Falcons.
Okay, so those are all great points.
Oh, here we go.
No, but I bet I can sway you guys on why the Packers actually have the most to win here. You mentioned what happened in the NFC Championship game. It's not just, oh, we want revenge. It's the Packers looked in that game like their defense was drawing dead against the Atlanta Falcons. You saw it on Aaron Rodgers' face, a look of resignation. Not that he couldn't score points, but once the turnovers happened, they're like, hold on, I'm 2 scores down. We're not going to force any punts. Like, we have no path to victory here. I just watched this Packers defense shut down a Seattle team that I think potentially could have a very good offense. Not an elite offense, but I don't look at the Seahawks as a team that's going to win games 10-7. So you just shut down Seattle. If the Packers defense can slow down Atlanta, and if the Packers can win that game, it's not just that you're 2-0. You now have the head-to-head tiebreaker with 2 teams that you could be competing with for home field. You're only going to play Seattle once in the regular season. You already got that tiebreaker. So you are essentially 2 games up on them. If you beat Atlanta as well, you're essentially 2 games up on them. And you mentioned how much home field means for Atlanta. Home field means an enormous
Even more
amount
for Green Bay.
For Green Bay. Not just because you're at home, but you think a team like the Falcons wants to go to Lambeau in January?
No.
You think the Cowboys want to go to Lambeau in January? So we all know the Packers have the best quarterback in the league. And if you don't think that, you believe he's one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in the league, and Aaron Rodgers. If the defense can slow down the Falcons, everyone's going to have to reevaluate how good this team really can be.
But, Greg, you're the first person to point out to me that this defense was different. And it might be as good as that great defense you guys had that led to a Super Bowl champion. So Aaron Rodgers, if he's able to have a competent defense, and to me, I've been around a lot of guys in TV, there's no one better as far as a Green Bay expert than Greg. So looking at the way that defense, looking at the changes that they've made, looking what's happening in the NFL, what do you think the potential for this Packers defense is?
Well, I would think the potential is through the roof. And of the 51 Super Bowl championships, only 3 of them have ranked outside of top 15 in total scoring defense. And so for me, when I look at this scope, we always look at the skill position guys, but if we really want to look in the trenches where the game is really...
Well, we like that because the money. We like,
Absolutely.
Oh, it's up to us. But in the end of the day...
Absolutely, but there's 2 guys, a matchup that is exciting actually to myself, a center, a 4-time Pro Bowl center, and Alex Mack.
Oh, great point.
And Mike Daniels, who may be one of the best... I'm just going to say it. He is probably the best interior defensive tackle playing in this game right now, just by what he's able to do, the levers that he's able to create.
He had the strip sack on Russell
What he
Wilson
does
that changed
for
the
that
game.
D-line, eliminating them for having to put pressure by blitzing every time, allowing Clay Matthews and Nick Perry to get out on the edge. It's going to be exciting from the interior to the outside. And I'm excited to see what Atlanta Falcons do. And you made a good point, but the Green Bay Packers on the road,
Not the same.
Not the same. But it's not the same in a good way. They have the longest road winning streak right now in the NFL, dating back to last year.
Ooh, Mr. Numbers guy.
Regular season, of course. So, and going back to, they won the last, I want to say 3 out of the 4 Atlanta Falcons game, 2 of them being dating down back in Atlanta. So they don't care about where they play. It's about how prepared they are.
If Green Bay loses this game, they can say to themselves, okay, we started the season with as tough of a schedule as you're going to have. Seattle and the defending NFC champions, we got our split. We're 1-1, so be it. If Atlanta loses this game, they're going to be saying to themselves, man, we were 1 fluttery Mike Glennon pass away from losing week 1 to Chicago.
Yes, didn't look good.
If they then lose to Green Bay, it's like, okay, so our last 3 games, a meltdown in the Super Bowl hangover, escape a win against Chicago, and then lose our billion-dollar home opener to Green Bay, some of those doubts that I have about this team start maybe creeping into their heads. Just something to watch.
Eli Manning had a rough week 1 against the Cowboys. Keep in mind, Manning was missing his top target in Odell Beckham Jr. and never got on the same page with Brandon Marshall, who only caught 1 pass. Despite the rocky start, Eli isn't one to overreact.
No, first game, guys were playing fast, got some new guys out there, some new bodies, so, we'll bounce back, we'll be fine, and we just got to, slow down, everybody take a breath, and just run the plays that the way we've been running them all spring and all summer.
CC, is he right about the Giants?
Well, yeah, he gave us a little insight. He's not talking about the fans. When Aaron Rodgers, when he told everyone to relax, he was talking to the fans. Eli was talking about the way the plays were coming in and the way they were thinking. There's a lot of new faces on the Giants. And also, in getting the plays, it seems like because you didn't have your best playmaker, there might have been some panic in the offense. Like, he wasn't talking to fans for us to take a breath. He was saying they need to take a breath. Now, that's pretty profound statement coming from, oh, shucks, Eli. I mean, oh, shucks. That's all he's told us his whole career. Oh, shucks. So I think this is very telling that the Giants felt the pressure of not having Odell, that he personally said, well, yeah, we'll be okay. Need to take a breath. everyone in the huddle. Brandon Marshall has to be a focal point, more of the offense, targeted 1 time the first half, 4 times.
But is that on Brandon or is that on the quarterback? Where does that? Where do you
it's
place the
on
blame?
both of them. But Brandon's had success everywhere he's been with less quarterbacks than Eli. So I would say it's more on Eli than it is on Brandon, because Brandon is a proven commodity, a big physical wide receiver that plays to the boundary. That was a great compliment of OBJ. Oh, OBJ wasn't there. That's why they had to take a breath.
Well, but here is the unfortunate part for Eli. And this is what he knows, which is why I don't really buy those comments. Even when OBJ's been there, that offense has been bad, except for a couple 3 plays a game that Odell Beckham Jr. shows the world.
Makes magic.
He's better at football than just about anybody. The Giants have not scored 20 points in their last 9 games.
Wow, that's shocking.
November 14th was the last time they scored 20 points. Odell played in all those games except for the last one. The last time the Giants scored 20 points against a playoff team, week 1 of last year. The Giants have been making their money on a great defense and a couple magical plays from the kid with yellow hair. And so this is why my Super Bowl pick out of the NFC is skating on a knife's edge, unlike any team in the league. Almost every team in football that could win the Super Bowl knows we are 1 quarterback injury away from being knocked out. But the league has changed the rules to make quarterbacks safer. The Giants are 1 wide receiver injury away from having their season wrecked. And the league has changed the rules to actually put the receivers in more danger. As far as they've protected their heads long term, and you can applaud them for it. But we saw the Giants this is how far the Giants were from having their season already be over. Because that's how far Odell's cleat was off the turf when the Browns player hit him low. It ended up being a sprained ankle. It would have been a blown out knee. This team struggles to score points with the most dynamic player in the sport. Without him, they're drawn dead.
So then how can you say that this entire offense, and really this season, is going to have to go through Odell Beckham? If they're averaging, 20 points a game?
Less than 20.
Less than 20 points with him.
No, this is a myth. How did Giants win those other 2 Super Bowls? They did it with great special teams, a dominant defense that created turnovers, put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, sacked the quarterback, and the offense maintained the ball, didn't turn it over, and in the critical time, they made 2 or 3 plays in both of those monumental victories that was able to lead to victory.
But then what you're saying is they should be okay with or without him in the lineup. They can get it done.
Because those years they won the Super Bowl, they were not as bereft of offensive talent. Outside, they didn't have anyone as good as Odell, but they had Plexco. They had better running backs. They had those other
They
Giants,
had a better offensive line.
Right. That's a huge one. Those other Giants offenses, when they won the Super Bowl, had a bunch of C+, B-, B-level players. This Giants offense appears to have a bunch of C- and below players and 1 A+ guy that changes everything. But even with the A+ guy out there, Eli himself needs to have a moment and say, do I need to take a breath? Eli's last 7 games, he's had a quarterback rating of 76. He's had 7 touchdowns and 11 turnovers. And the Giants have a losing record. That's 6 of those games Odell was out there.
But, Nick, every morning you come out here and tell us what's wrong with the Giants, and you were like a proud peacock picking them to go to the Super Bowl.
Because I believe you can have serious flaws on offense that can be disguised by the best player in the league. And one thing I have not been worried about the Giants one bit is that defense.
Their defense.
That defense is so, I believe, to be so dominant that they're not going to have to score 20 points to win a lot of games once Odell comes back particularly.
Right. One of the things that this Giants team can't duplicate that those other 2 championship teams did, because they were coached by someone totally different in Tom Coughlin. And what Tom Coughlin did, the overall physicality of the offensive line matched the intensity of the defense. So it's hard to be New York Football Giants, the G-men, to play that style with a soft offensive line. So not only do they not have dual running backs, not only do they not have Odell Beckham, they don't have the physicality, because in the NFL, a great defense can win you Super Bowls.
Moving on to Indianapolis, where the Andrew Luck situation seems to be getting worse by the day. After announcing that Luck wouldn't play Week 2, rumors began to circulate that Luck could be searching for a way to move away from the Colts. Luck's agent came out and said, quote, speculation that Luck wants out is false. Nick, should Luck want to leave the Colts?
Absolutely, he should. If I were him, I would. But he clearly doesn't. Luck 1 year ago signed a long-term contract extension.
Yes.
With Indianapolis. He did that after the team. Let's just go back for a moment. The 2015 season was marred by infighting between coach and GM. It was well known across the league that Grigson and Pagano did not get along, and it seemed to submarine their season in 2015. As soon as the season ended, their owner signed, people thought they were going to fire at least one, probably both. Irsay signs them both.
Yeah, he meets with them like the Pope. The smoke comes out, and you think both of them are going to get fired. Both of them come out with new contracts.
After that mismanagement, what did Andrew Luck do? Signed away the entirety of the beginning of his career to the team. Like, this is a bed that is partially made by Andrew Luck. He's the most powerful person in the franchise. He could have, it's very hard to force your way out of town in the NFL, but it's not that hard to force changes to be made when you're the face of the franchise. Luck's done none of that.
Yeah.
Why?
I just think that Andrew Luck is just not that type of person. I've met him. I've talked with him. He's a no-frills type of guy. Comes from a very, very strong professional home. His dad, Oliver, has been involved in sports all around the world. So Andrew Luck has grown up wanting to be a quarterback in the NFL. He loves football, but he loves his commitment to institutions. I mean, he could have went anywhere. He went to Stanford not only for the football, but for the education. He could have been the first pick in the draft. He's already graduated. What does he decide to do? I'm going to go back to Stanford. Now, that's not a normal guy who would do that. His commitment to Indianapolis, he didn't have to do that. So for me and the people who know Andrew Luck, I think this could be the furthest thing from the truth. I think he's committed to Indianapolis. He's committed to the organization because it's his personality. Regardless of what people outside the organization, he is a guy who wants to bring a championship to Indianapolis. He wants to fulfill what Mel Kiper said, what the owner said. At least get one championship like Peyton Manning, because it would be considered a colossal failure if he was to depart Indianapolis. And let me tell you something. You think Indy's bad, there's a bunch of other bad spots in the NFL. He could be worse off going somewhere else. There's no guarantee that he's going to go somewhere and it's just going to be like, oh, well, Drew Brees, he went from San Diego to New Orleans. No, it doesn't happen like that in the NFL.
A guy that went to Stanford should be smart enough to know that this team is light years away from winning its first Super Bowl. From management to the structure on the team to the pieces that they still need to Luck's injury.
That still doesn't change his personality.
No, but you talk about a guy who loves playing football, who grew up wanting to be a quarterback in the NFL. And I believe everything you said except for the very, very last part that says, you know, I'm a nicer guy than I am driven to go off and find a team that will protect me, that will keep me healthy, and that'll allow me to succeed.
Okay, first things first. He doesn't control his own destiny.
But he could have last year?
No, even if he goes in there. That's too late, though. He's already signed it. We're talking about what's going on right now. If he goes to Jim Murray and say, trade me, they're not going to trade him.
Of course they're...
He's stuck in Indianapolis. So let's deal with that.
I don't disagree with that part of it, but I do think that two of his goals might be at cross purposes here. Showing loyalty to the franchise that took him and fulfilling what Mel Kiper and all the draft experts said about him. Those two things right now seem to be going in different directions. In order for Luck to be the quarterback everyone promised me he was going to be, he might need a better franchise with a more stable institutional control. You're right that at this point, as you would say, the cement is dry on that. Like, that contract runs till 2021. He is not going anywhere anytime soon, but I am surprised he did not take more control of the head coach GM situation.
He's not that kind of person. He does not want to be involved in the decisions, all right? You guys are making these statements absent of knowing the guy. He's just not that type of guy. He's a lot like Russell Wilson. He is a great guy. He's the guy, if you had a daughter, man, you would introduce her to him. He is that kind of person. So for us to come up with all these other things, I can't think about them absent of the personality. The guy had a flip phone just last year. I mean, he's not the normal quarterback. He's not the normal human being.
If I introduce my daughter to Russell Wilson, does Sierra then become single? Just kidding.
I didn't even fully get that.
I'm going to leave that one alone.
Thank you for listening to your First Things First podcast. I'm your host, Jenna Wolfe. We will be back at the same time tomorrow, 6:30 a.m. Eastern on FS1. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts. So long, everybody.